back to the channel. Today we're going to unravel some incredibly complex events in Genoa. Rumors are circulating around the Newman family, but what's the truth? In this video, I'll summarize the plot points that will be revealed in the next episode. Stay tuned to see what happens.
Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel. It is a wild Wednesday night and we are absolutely buzzing. We need to talk about today's episode because my jaw is literally on the floor. Grab a snack, settle in, and let's dive right into this absolute madness because things in Genoa City just reached a boiling point. I cannot believe they just did that. I am sitting here typing furiously because my heart is still pounding out of my chest after watching the final 10 minutes of today's episode of The Young and the Restless. I mean, are you kidding me right now? Kyle Abbott actually did something useful. And not just useful, but completely, undeniably heroic. I have to get this out of my system before I even try to sleep tonight because the adrenaline is way too real. Reacting first because I am just so overwhelmed by what we just witnessed. Kyle Abbott took down Patty Williams. Wait, let me back up. I'm getting entirely ahead of myself because my brain is going a million miles a minute. But seriously, am I the only one who was screaming at their television screen when that parking lot scene happened? I know some people are loving this whole dark, twisted Patty storyline, but personally, I have been waiting for anyone, to finally put an end to her reign of terror, and to have it be Kyle. The son who just watched his mother get poisoned, pure cinema. Let's talk about the absolute sheer panic that must have been coursing through Patty's veins because Jack Abbott woke up. Yes, Jack is finally awake from his coma, and the very first thing he does is point a finger straight at Patty Williams. He identified her as his attacker. Boom, done. The gig is up. Patty's entire delusional fantasy where she gets to play nurse and eventually become the new Mrs. Jack Abbott just went up in flames. And you could see the exact moment her brain short-circuited. The actress played it so perfectly. That wild, unhinged look in her eyes when she realized that Jack wasn't going to be her compliant little hostage anymore. She knew she was busted. Tracy had already confronted her with the evidence from the phone. Detective Burrow was breathing down her neck. And now the victim himself is awake and talking. So what does a cornered rat do? She tries to scurry away. But we have to talk about the absolute joke that is Genoa City Memorial Hospital security. I mean, seriously, how does this keep happening? I have been watching this show since 2015 and this is the worst thing they do consistently. Anyone can just walk in and out, disguised as a nurse, carrying toxic syringes, and nobody bats an eye. Patty literally created a minor distraction, a little bit of chaos in the hallway, and just slipped right through the cracks of a supposedly high-security lockdown. Are Paul Williams and the GCPD completely incompetent? Your prime suspect for the attempted murder of a prominent CEO is just wandering the halls looking for an exit. It drives me absolutely insane. Remember when they tried this exact same escape trope with Ian Ward? Yeah, didn't work then either in terms of logic, but we just have to suspend our disbelief, I guess. Okay, back to the point. Patty is making her move. She is slinking through the corridors, trying to find a way out of the hospital to escape the city. Let's really dig into the psychology of Patty Williams for a second. She is a master of disguise and deception, right? We have seen her manipulate her way out of high-security wards before. So when she realized Jack had pointed the finger at her, her survival instinct kicked in. She didn't just run blindly, she calculated. She found a moment where a medical cart was being rushed down the hall, creating a bottleneck of doctors and nurses. She used that split second of chaos to slip through a side exit door that should have been alarmed. Why wasn't it alarmed? I am sorry, but Genoa City Memorial needs to fire its entire security staff. But anyway, Patty slips out, her heart hammering, thinking she has outsmarted everyone once again. She probably thought she was going to disappear into the night, maybe hitch a ride out of town, or run back to that creepy Dr. Markham to demand he hide her. But she didn't count on Kyle Abbott. And let me tell you, I have never loved Kyle more than I did in this episode. Because Kyle is currently running on pure, unfiltered trauma and rage. We have to remember the context here. Kyle just watched Patty plunge a toxic syringe into Diane's neck. He had to catch his own mother as she collapsed into his arms, slipping into a coma while the poison ravaged her system. Can you even imagine the PTSD? He was screaming for a doctor, begging his mom to stay with him. That kind of trauma changes a person. It flips a switch in your brain. So while the cops are fumbling around and the hospital staff is confused, Kyle is hyper-vigilant. He is watching every shadow, every movement. He knows Patty is a slippery snake. He anticipated this exact move. Imagine being Kyle in that moment. Your mother is lying on a gurney, doctors are shouting medical jargon, machines are beeping frantically, and the woman who caused all of this is somewhere in the building. Kyle could have easily collapsed into a chair, crying and waiting for news. Nobody would have blamed him, but no, his eyes were darting everywhere. He was scanning every face, every uniform. When he saw that nurse's uniform slip through the side door, he didn't hesitate. He didn't even wait for Detective Burrow. He just moved. It was pure instinct. The adrenaline must have been deafening in his ears. He shadowed her. He followed her out of the hospital, staying just far enough back so she wouldn't notice. It was so intense. I was literally biting my nails. Then we get to the parking lot, the empty, dimly lit, creepy Genoa City Memorial parking lot. The atmosphere was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Patty thinks she's home free. She is probably already plotting her next delusional move, maybe figuring out how to contact Dr. Markham or find another disguise. But then Kyle steps out of the shadows, going somewhere. Patty? Chills, literal chills. Patty turns around, and you can see the desperation hit a boiling point. She is a cornered animal, and cornered animals are the most dangerous. She tries to make a run for it, sprinting across the asphalt, but Kyle is faster. He is younger, he is fueled by adrenaline, and he is not letting her go. When they collided in that parking lot, it was like a freight train hitting a brick wall. Patty is surprisingly strong when she is backed into a corner. She was fighting not just for her freedom, but for her twisted version of reality. If she gets locked up, she loses Jack forever. That is her ultimate nightmare. So she is fighting with the strength of a woman possessed. She was aiming for Kyle's eyes, trying to scratch his face, kicking at his shins. But Kyle's anger was a shield. He absorbed every hit because every time she struck him, he just remembered his mother collapsing. He remembered Jack bleeding on the floor. He used that pain to anchor himself. You are done, Patty. IT is over, he roared at her. The echo of his voice in that empty parking lot was haunting. It was the sound of decades of Abbott family trauma finally saying enough is enough. The physical confrontation that followed was brutal and so incredibly raw. Kyle tackles her to the ground. He literally throws himself at her to stop her from escaping. And Patty fights back like a wildcat. She is clawing, scratching, desperately trying to get him off her. It wasn't some choreographed, pretty soap opera slap fight. It was an ugly, messy struggle on the hard concrete. Kyle is grappling with her, pinning her arms down, using all his body weight to keep her restrained. You can hear Patty screaming, crying, denying everything. I didn't do it. Jack loves me. Diane ruined everything. She is completely lost in her psychosis, but Kyle isn't buying a single word of it. He is holding her down, panting, his face inches from hers, and he is just yelling at her to stop. And let's talk about the absolute sheer audacity of Patty trying to play the victim even while she is pinned to the asphalt. She is sobbing, tears streaming down her face, screaming that Diane is the real monster. Diane drugged me. Diane made me do it. Jack and I are meant to be. It is sickeningly fascinating how her mind works. She completely rewrites history to make herself the tragic heroine. But Kyle wasn't having a single second of it. he didn't try to reason with her. You can't reason with that level of delusion. He just kept his weight on her, his knee pressing into the ground, holding her wrists in a vice grip. He was breathing so hard, his chest heaving, just glaring down at her with absolute disgust. I mean, the lighting in the scene was so cinematic. The harsh yellow glow of the street lamps casting these long, dramatic shadows over them, it felt like a movie, not a daytime soap. I have to pause and just give a massive round of applause to the actors here. The sheer physical exertion in that scene was phenomenal. You could feel Kyle's desperation. He is holding down the woman who destroyed his family. This is the woman who stabbed Jack and left him bleeding on the dining room floor. This is the woman who injected Diane with a lethal toxin. And Kyle is the only thing standing between her and freedom. I mean, think about the history here. Patty has gotten away with so much over the years. She shot Victor. She caused so much chaos. And she always manages to slip away or get sent to some cushy psychiatric facility where she eventually escapes again. Kyle knows this. He knows the justice system in Genoa City is a revolving door for Patty Williams. That is why he couldn't just let the guards handle it. When the security guards finally burst through the hospital doors and ran toward them, Kyle didn't even let go immediately. It was like he couldn't process that help had arrived. He was so locked into survival mode, so focused on keeping this monster contained, that the guards actually had to pry his hands off her wrists. And as they hauled Patty up, she was still kicking, still screaming Jack's name into the night sky. It was chilling. It sent shivers down my spine. The way her voice cracked as she realized she was truly, finally caught. Her entire escape plan crumbled because she underestimated a son's love for his parents. Kyle just stood there, watching them drag her away. He looked down at his hands, probably shaking from the adrenaline crash. He fixed his jacket, took a deep, shuddering breath, and turned back toward the hospital doors, because his job wasn't done. He stopped the villain, yes, but now he has to go face the reality of his mother's coma. The emotional whiplash this poor guy is experiencing is off the charts. From the high of catching the bad guy to the devastating low of the ICU waiting room. I am telling you, if the actor playing Kyle doesn't get an Emmy nomination for this week's performances, the whole system is rigged. But guys, I am so worried about the fallout from this. Yes, Patty is back in custody, but at what cost? Diane is still in a coma. The doctors are trying to save her, but that toxic syringe did some serious damage. Kyle just fought off a psychopath, but he still has to go back inside that hospital and sit by his mother's bedside, not knowing if she will ever wake up. And what about Jack? The family is trying to hide the truth about Diane's condition from him because he just woke up from his own major surgery. They are terrified that the shock of knowing Diane is in a coma will cause Jack to have a medical setback. But come on, this is Jack Abbott. He is going to find out. He is going to ask for Diane, and when they can't produce her, he is going to demand answers. I am dreading the moment Jack finds out what Patty did to Diane. He is going to blame himself. He is going to think that if he hadn't tried to play Patty, if he hadn't faked that romance to get intel, Diane wouldn't have been targeted. The guilt is going to eat Jack alive. And honestly, I kind of blame Victor Newman for all of this. Victor funded Patty's return. Victor set this whole chain of events in motion. If Diane dies, or if Jack suffers a relapse, the blood is entirely on Victor's hands. I know some people love Victor's ruthless business moves, but this went way too far. He unleashed a mentally unstable woman on a family, and now people are fighting for their lives in the ICU. Let's circle back to Kyle for a second before I wrap this up. I have been really critical of Kyle in the past. Sometimes he acts like a spoiled rich kid. Sometimes he makes terrible business decisions at Abbott. But this storyline has completely redeemed him in my eyes. He showed true grit today. When the system failed, when the police were too slow, Kyle stepped up. He protected his family. He protected Jack and Diane. He proved that he has the Abbott fighting spirit. I just hope the writers don't ruin this character development. Let Kyle be the hero. Let him be the one who finally ensures Patty Williams gets locked away in a maximum security prison where she can never, ever escape again. I am still shaking. This episode was a masterpiece of tension and release. The pacing of the hospital chase, the claustrophobic feel of the parking lot, the raw emotion of the struggle. It was soap opera perfection. I know I am rambling, and I might be contradicting myself because I am just so emotional right now, but I don't even care. This is why we watch The Young and the Restless. For moments like this where you are literally on the edge of your seat, screaming at the characters to watch their backs. What do you guys think? Are you as blown away by Kyle's heroism as I am? Drop your thoughts below.